Welcome back. Now, let's talk about something that all of us love to eat, and most of us love to eat, rice.
Yeah, because
Nigerians love to eat rice, whether it's at festive season or not. Some people, it's Sunday tonic, and, you know, we just love to eat it. But there's been a lot of stories around rice these days. We are not talking about the price being too high. We are talking about some people trying to bring in the fake or plastic rice. I can't even think of it. But how can we make Nigeria self-sufficient in rice farming? We'll be talking about this and so much more in this segment of the program. And we have in the studio the Vice President, Nigeria Agribusiness Group, Mr. Emmanuel Ijewere. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we also have a great entrepreneur, Mr. Abimbola Olajola. Good to have you here. Olajolo, good to have you here.
My pleasure being here.
Okay, so we're talking about plastic rice. I never thought that any time in our lifetime we'll talk about rice being plastic. What's going on?
It's because we left an avenue for people who were more interested in making quick profits. The big companies that have been importing rice in Nigeria never really took seriously the idea of growing rice locally. The plastic rice is just one. But how about the quality of rice we have been importing in the past 5 to 10 years? I'm talking specifically of the fact that most of those countries from where we import rice, India, China, Malaysia, Thailand, and so on, and Vietnam, these countries only sell the rice that they do not need from their strategic reserve. And to a large extent, that rice is about 8 to 10 years old. That's the one they can release. Every country looks after its own interest and after its own people. Nigeria has the capacity to import rice and export rice. Has the capacity to export rice, but has not developed that capacity. As a consequence, we relied, because of oil money, on importing rice. Those countries themselves, in 2014, the then Minister Additional called us to a meeting and said to us that they've got a notice from 3 Southeast Asian countries to say that they are going to cut down the quantity of rice they export to Nigeria because of their strategic reserve challenges. That was when it dawned on us that this stupidity of relying on other people to grow what you need for you, when your land can produce a lot more than their own land, was very stupid. So that was when we started this whole thing. But meanwhile, the price differential in recent times has been created by the fact that there is no proper value chain between the imported rice and the exported rice. Let me just put it this way. Lagos State, that has the ports, eats about 65 to 70% of all the rice imported into Nigeria. So Lagos is not Nigeria, but Lagos eats almost 75% of the imported rice. The rest of the country manage the balance of 30%. But then, we're not saying that they eat less rice, but they eat the Nigerian rice. So this exotic taste is more in the developed areas like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Benin, and those big cities. The average Nigerian in the hinterland, rice is rice. But we now got this mentality that only imported rice is good for us, when in actual fact, the nutrient value of imported rice far below. Absolutely. So those are the challenges, and the plastic issue is just a symptom of the structural problems that we have, because we have in our own head that imported rice is better, and that is not true.
You deal in agriculture. You farm rice?
I farm maize and cassava, but I know about rice, yes.
Okay, now we're talking about plastic rice. We currently, if the figures are right, produce about 3 million metric tons of rice, and although we need more than 5 million. How did we get to a point where somebody would think that, you know, bringing in plastic rice when we have ofada, when we have the Abakaliki rice, you know, is the solution to meeting up the gap?
Just like what Mr. Ijewere said, we have created that gap. if you look at what we are, you just said it now, that we need about 5.5 trillion metric tons, and here we are just on 3. Now, someone has thought about it in a ingenious way to bring in plastic rice to meet the demand. Now, just look at a couple of weeks back now, Lagos State came up with lake rice. I mean, it's not something that is it's not really a new idea, so to speak. It's just our policy guys are just being lazy, let's put it that way. Now, there are a lot of states, what you need is good soil. It's swamp area, you grow rice. I mean, you can grow rice almost any part of this country. Now, what do we have? We have, what is it called? You have states, government going cap in hand looking for money. They can actually generate high GR from all this business. So, I mean, we have left a space for people to come and bring in plastic rice. We have a porous border where there is no standard organization in place that will, you know, take care about it. So I think the way we have structured is a structural defect that some people within the system are taking advantage of. That's why we have the problem of plastic rice.
Mr. Jory, you said something about value chain, proper value chain between rice grown here and within the country. What is causing that glitch where we don't have a proper value chain? Because right now I do know that Nigerians are actually, those that have begun to enjoy the homegrown rice, they actually enjoy it and they look for it. So how can we get that value chain back?
I go back to where I was before when I talked about Dr. Additional at that time. When that came up, we now discovered that taking Nigerian rice seriously, the yield on our paddy rice was one of the lowest in the world, between 1.7 and 2.2. When those Southeast Asian countries are producing about 15, 16 tons per hectare, Nigeria was about less than 3 tons per hectare. That meant, and given the infrastructural problems of our roads, bringing the rice paddy and moving even the rice was very expensive business. Therefore, growing Nigerian rice was an expensive business. It was more expensive than those who are imported. And many of those that were imported, in fact, if not all, were subsidized by those countries. Like I said, they needed to get rid of those strategic reserves so they themselves in their country can eat fresh rice and pass on the stale rice to countries like Nigeria. Now, it became expensive because it's expensive as a result of inefficiency and because of implementation, or rather the policies of the past that were not in place to take rice seriously. Now it's beginning to change. I must say that. The